and live or dead. Allah doesn't like that. And He will give them whatever they want here in this dunya, because they're not going to get any share in the akhirah anyway. Did you ever wonder why rich people get richer and richer and they do worse and worse, more bad stuff, and they still get... Why? Because they all do some good deeds. Everybody does some good deeds. Even Prophet ﷺ said, nobody's perfectly good and nobody's perfectly bad. As for those who are bad in this life, and Allah hates them, still the good that they did, He'll give them all of their reward here, so they get nothing on the Day of Judgment. But for the ones who are really good, they're not perfectly good, they did some bad, so Allah will give them their punishment here, so they won't have to suffer on the Day of Judgment. This is a clear hadith. I shortened it because I didn't give you the story of the two people and all of it, but I think many of you heard it anyway. So for sure, Muslims must say the truth and must have the best akhlaq, the best behavior. If not, we will suffer here and we will suffer on the Day of Judgment. Make sense? Yeah, okay. Now let's come to the misconceptions that others have and how we can deal with it. And go through that rather quickly, I hope. When people ask us why the Quran says you have to beat your wives, why does the Quran say kill all the Jews and Christians? Before you start coming up with alibis and subjects, just hold on. I'm just going to give you the questions. Why do you worship a black box in the desert? Why do you force women to wear this rag on their head? Why do you force the children to pray? Why did Islam spread by the sword? These questions, you hear it, yes or no? A lot. And it comes like a fact. How are you going to deal with it? Because the problem we face today is nobody is really responding properly. The way the Prophet ﷺ would have responded would never have been to tell everybody to pick up picket signs and go to the streets and scream and holler. Okay, because say on Facebook, let's take Facebook or YouTube, something like that. Somebody puts up a video or a story or an article, and they're insulting the Quran or insulting the Prophet ﷺ, you know. And so here come the Muslims now. They're going to start a big campaign, right? They're going to put up the signs, the banners. They're going to go to the streets, you know, and chant and recite something, right? Huh? Oh, anyway. It's true or false? As soon as it's over, and I'm going to give you an example, it was the year 2000. In the year 2000, in the middle of September, I think it was September the 13th, I was in Malmö, Sweden, and on a tour up there. And while I was there is when Muhammad Dura, the little boy, you remember him? 13 years old, he was shot. You remember the picture that went everywhere, right? Now, where did that happen? Palestine, right? It was Palestine. I'm in Malmö, Sweden. This is not very close. You knew that, right? It's not like a bridge you can go across. Far away. And the language they speak in Palestine is what? Arabic. Some people speak English. But not too many people speak the Swedish language there. Am I right? In Palestine. They speak Swedish? Okay. So in Malmö, Sweden, the Muslims, there's a lot of Muslims there, they went to the streets, they held up the banners, and they had everything in Arabic, huh? And the people screaming, and they had, you call it a bullhorn. You know a bullhorn? You talk, make your voice roll like that. Okay? And they had they said maybe more than 5,000. More than 5,000 marching down the street. And I had my camera, of course, videotaping it, watching, trying to understand, why are you doing this? So along the way, I would stop the Swedish people on the street who are watching. I said, and I asked them, you speak English? Yeah. What's this? I don't know. I think it's Muslims. Yeah. What's it about? I'm scared. I don't know. They don't know. Some told me they thought the Muslims were trying to take over Sweden. Some of their experts even referred to it later, said, see how the Sharia is? They're trying to take over. So there's a big misconception here. But is this what Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wanted us to do? Now let me give you the rest of the story. I ask the only man that was in the demonstration, why is it all women? He says, it's not. There's another man who's up there, and there's two back over here. I said, you got 5,000 women, though. Well, yeah. There's nothing wrong with our sisters want to support it, yeah? I said, and babies in the baby carriages. Why is just the women? He said, oh, the men are waiting at where we're going to end. They're all going to be there demonstrating. We got there. Sure enough, there they were. Now they got on their outfit, you know, with their around looked like Yasser Arafat. You remember with this? Said, I get it. You know why they got so much energy? They didn't have to walk in the parade. Because you walk 5 miles, you're tired, right? Let the ladies do all the work, and then wallah, this is how it was. And then they get there, then they tell the women, okay, go away. We got it covered now. Here we are, Mr. Macho. And standing on their vans and their cars, shouting, saying stuff, give speeches with a bullhorn. Again, I go around and ask the people, the Swedish people, what do you think about this? I don't know. I don't know. I'm scared. The Swedish government, listen to this, gave them permission, emergency permission to have a parade. Here, permission, free. And one thing, you want to have a place to gather to start? Okay, we're going to make sure this is safe for you to start. And a place to end, at the end park. Only thing we ask, be careful of these statues and things that we have there, because some are very old. It's part of monuments and things. Just be respectful of that and go ahead. One of the statues they had was some kind of a guy like this or something, and on the top was like a table way up. These shabab, the young boys, climbed up on the top of that. That's bad enough, right? Just to climb up is bad, right? They took lighter fluid and squirted it all over the Najm Dawood, you know, the flag for the Israeli. And they took a mannequin-looking thing, looked like human. Huh? I don't know who it's supposed to be. I don't think they knew either. And then they've set it on fire. I got it on tape. In those days, we had tape. And even now, I laugh. It's not really funny, but I laugh. Because when they were trying to start the fire, the thing wouldn't catch on fire, but they got so much lighter fluid on the top of the thing, the fire was under their feet. And they're jumping up and down trying to get out of the fire on top of that thing. So they give up, and they threw the thing down, whatever it was, and somebody else has squirted this stuff all over it. He's all excited, and he set the fire. But he didn't know he got this lighter fluid all over his shoes. So his shoes are on fire. So he's dancing with his shoes on fire. It's not funny, but it was hysterical. I don't know. This is not Islam. Not any of that is Islam. Because the focus and attention didn't show what the real problem was. And when it was over, as soon as they were finished, these guys went back home, took off all of their costumes, threw away their burned up shoes, and sit in front of the TV to see if they were on TV. And you have a word for that in Arabic. Aib. Aib. This is a big shame. And no part of that represented anything to do with Islam. And unfortunately, it was in every city around the world. The same kind of stupid mentality. If you said, we got attention, yeah, you sure did. There's a lot of stuff you can do to get attention, and setting fire to yourself is sure one of them. There's no doubt about it. But it sure didn't make us look smart, and it sure didn't give the right impression about what Islam teaches. I'm very sorry that little boy got killed. Nobody can imagine what it's like to have your child killed in such a way as that. But if you think about it, it didn't represent the teachings of Judaism either, did it? Because in the Jewish book, it does not teach you can do that. In fact, it very clear says, you shall not kill. So just because somebody is Jewish and they did it, you don't blame their religion, do you? Do you? Be honest, because if you do, then they're justified to blame Islam for what you do. And the same is true about Christians. A person who practices Judaism or practices Christianity or practices Islam is basically following the same Sharia that came all the way back at the time of Abraham and Moses and Jesus. Peace be upon all of them. And it isn't right, it isn't proper for us to go out and accuse people of something and then get mad when they accuse us of the same thing. It's not right. Islam is about balance. You know mizan. What's mizan? It's really about balance. And if you tip that balance even a little bit, you can lose your perspective, you can lose your hidayah, your guidance. As much as you want people to be fair to you, you must show that fairness to others. As much as you want people to say the truth, that means you're more responsible to say the truth yourself. As much as you want them to look at themselves, then you must be willing to look in the mirror the same way. And if you can't do that, then you're going to be a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. His early companions and followers did either. But the way that some represent Islam, I'm talking about the Muslims, you can understand why a non-Muslim would get these ideas. Because they would say, oh, your guy said, and they said it's in the Quran. Huh? But it's not. All right, now I've given you some general things. Let's talk about specific, and then we'll take some questions, inshallah. Specifically, somebody comes to you, and they say, how come you're in a religion that, and then they could say whatever they want after that. Could be anything, all right? That does this or that. Forced marriages. You force little girls to get married. Huh? And beating your wives. Why do you have to beat your wife? How you feel? Feel like, get out of here. My wife beats me. What are you talking about? There very much is a problem of some men beating their wives. That's true. Amongst Christians, amongst Jews, atheists, Buddhists, Hindus. Wait a minute. Muslims. Whoa, wait a minute. Everybody. It's a real problem. And that's the problem that should be dealt with. Not the problem of religion. It's the problem of men beating women. Let's deal with the real problem. If you said, well, they get authority to do that from the Quran or from the Bible or from this or from that, that still doesn't solve the problem. Because if the same man changed religion, he's still going to beat his wife, yes or no? So it's not going to solve anything to look at the religion. That's not the real problem. That just makes a second problem. Somebody tries to get an excuse to do what they do. But it's very simple. You could look at Islam and know, just read it. It's forbidden in Islam to oppress anybody. You cannot damage anybody. You cannot even hit somebody hard enough to leave a mark without being in trouble with the law. So how could you understand any of this teaching to be that you could beat, hit, or kill somebody? It's because that's what you wanted to believe. That's why you believed it. Think about that. So how do I deal with it, though? Now somebody came to me. I heard Yusuf Estes give a lecture. Okay, I can't react like I want to, you know. How come you can have 4 wives? How come you can have unlimited girlfriends? That doesn't solve anything. It doesn't solve anything. Just because you accuse them of having girlfriends, mistresses, doing adultery, there's no law in America about how many girlfriends you can have. There's no law against it. Just don't marry them. But if you said that, you're not going to solve the problem. That's not the way. Yes, you do need to understand what Islam is, what it was, how it came, what it implies. But the first and foremost thing is don't react because you're just going to start a fight. And you'll make a new problem. So how do I deal with it? Watch. How come you're in a religion that teaches you to force these little girls into a marriage they don't want? Thank you for asking me about my religion. See this reaction? A man did this to me after a lecture in Toronto, Canada. Came up to me as I was packing up and he said, I do have a question. I said, well, question's over now. He said, no, just how come you guys worship a black box in the desert? Thank you for asking me about my religion.
مع افتتاح عامها 20 منبر الداعيات تطل عليكم بثوبها المتجدد. جديدها لهذا العام صناعة الحضارة هو وهي شباب بنات نسمة حرية ربيع الشباب حكايا شبابية. منبر الداعيات للكلمة الحرة عنوان.
And I ask everybody to sit down again and we'll give him the answer. Slowly, step by step. And this is what we put on the internet. You can go there now to read it. Let me give you the reference for that. It's at searchforislam.com. SEARCH, the word for, FORISLAM.com. Or you can put the number in there, search number 4islam.com. The one will get you there. But when you get to it, type in the word harsh, HARSH. That's all. And then you'll see many web pages will be referred to there of these harsh questions. What the answer is, and more important, how to give the answer. So that the person comes away understanding and realizing some beauty of Islam at the same time. It really is amazing that the people who actually used it have written to me and told me this works like a charm. And I'm telling you, it's nothing different than what our Prophet ﷺ would have done. He would be happy for the chance to talk to the people. Let us take another example before I go deeper on this. Our Prophet ﷺ took this message of worshiping one God with no partners to a place called a Taif. Anybody heard about that? Well, most of you here heard about a Taif. It's not very far from Arafat. If you know where Mecca is, the road to Arafat, keep going. There's some mountains up there, make a right turn, and there you are. That's Taif. So he went there and met, or wanted to meet, with the tribal leaders. Now these people are all descendants from the same tribe, way back somewhere. So because of their relationship, they should give him dignity. They should hear what he has to say, serve him, tea or water, something. And as we say, roll out the red carpet, because he's a dignitary, so to speak, coming from another tribe. But instead, because of the message he's carrying, because he is a prophet of Almighty Allah, look how they treat him. They said, we don't want to meet with this guy. Yeah? Because if he's not who he says he is, then we're entertaining a fool. And if he is who he says he is, then we'd be in trouble anyway. So let's just turn the street urchins against him. So the people of the street, like kids or whatever, pick up these rocks and they start throwing rocks. And they threw rocks on him and his companion, and they had to run out of town with blood running down. So much so the blood fills his sandals. And they didn't stop running till they got close to the end of a orchard, or I can't think what you call it in English. But when they got there, they stopped. The angel Gabriel came to him and told him that Allah can bring these mountains down on top of these people. No problem. There's an angel on either side ready to just bring them down. Just say the word, and boom, they're gone. Because, think about this, they stoned you, Allah will stone them. How's that? Did he say yes? Would you have said yes? Now, remember we said you got to say the truth? What did he say? Instead, he prayed for them. Would you pray for them? Or would you curse them? No. Be honest. So the teaching that we have from Islam is that you pray for your enemy. That's the first step. And that prayer for your enemy should be like his prayer. He said, may Allah guide them, and from them bring those who worship Allah. Because that's the only reason he went there. The only reason he went there was to tell them to worship God without partners, because they were mushrikeen. They worship idols, rocks, sticks, stones, bones, and everything else. Anything that moves or doesn't move. They're just like some of the religions we have today. And he wanted to call them to the truth. And for that, they stoned him. And for that, he prayed for them to be guided. So that's the example. And had even one of them come to him, even saying, why are you preaching this message? He would have been happy. He would have smiled because he had a chance to talk to them. And this is your chance to talk to somebody. But let them see Islam in you, so they don't walk away saying, I'm glad that I didn't meet a Muslim first. We have more about this, and we'll deal with that in a few minutes, and how you respond after you say, thank you for asking me about my religion, the steps, the questions and the answers in details. So don't go away. We'll be back with more on Guide Us TV.
The first question that we have is the Muslim God identical with the Christian and the Jewish God? Actually, we know the word is Muslim, but they wrote the term Muslim. Is the Muslim God identical with the Christian and the Jewish God?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam rasulullah. Because of the nature of our program tonight, I'm going to add a little something to the question. I'm going to ask the question to myself as though somebody is attacking Islam, okay? Not, because this is a straightforward question and there's no problem with it. It should be dealt that way. But suppose somebody said that your God is a made-up God, it's not real. You're not the same as the Christian or the Jewish God. If they said it like that, then how do you respond? And I already told you, you say, thank you for asking me about my religion. And you smile. Don't forget to smile. If the sound, you know, like, like whenever you're going to take a picture and they say smile, say what? Jibna. But so somebody asks you a question like that, thank you for asking me about my religion. Then go to the next point. In Islam, it is forbidden to lie. If I don't know the answer, I have to tell you I don't know. And I'll be rewarded for that. But if I make up any answer, I will go to hell for that. The second point, we have all of the references extant today about Islam. There is nothing about Islam that we need to make up or fill in the blanks. It's all right there. What Islam teaches has been recorded, preserved, and presented for over 1,400 years. There are not two versions of the Quran. There's only one. There are not two versions of Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim, just one. Even in Tirmidhi and the Sunan of Abu Dawud, Ibn Majid, and others, there's not two versions. Although they will tell you this one is weaker than this one, this is so and so, that's exactly preservation itself to demonstrate the value of authentication or riwayah of Islam. So many people don't know that. Now, some Arab Christians and Arab Jews, they realize that, they understand that. But for the vast majority of people in the world, even some Muslims, don't know how important it is to be able to refer back to exactly what Islam really does teach. Because if you do that, you yourself will benefit, and it makes it really easy to answer a question properly. All right? So those are the 2 points you must convey after you say, thank you for asking me about my religion. Now, if the statement is incorrect, then you want to help them understand the statement's incorrect. For instance, if they said, your Allah is not the God of the Jews and Christians. If they said that, then you could say, well, thank you for asking me about my religion. In Islam, we have the truth and the proof. I summed that for you. You know what to do there. But let me share with you that some questions are not questions. They are statements with a question mark. If somebody could ask you a question and say, will you answer me with a yes or no question? Will you do that? You say yes, of course. Is your mother out of jail? Huh? Is your mother out of the jail yet? What? My mother's not, yes or no? How can I answer this question? My mother's never been, Is she in or out of jail? She's out. Good, I'm glad she got out. So you see, the question actually had a statement that's false. And you can't properly deal with it unless you break it down and look at it from the source, and that's why it's important to know the source. So let us consider. You asked about Allah. Is Allah the same Allah for the Christians and the Jews? Well, the way to find out is to see in the Quran, is the word Allah used? Huh? Well, I will tell you that in my own personal experience of going through and looking, I've found thousands, not hundreds, thousands of times the word Allah, Lillah, or a form of it, like Allahumma, etc. You'll find this word Allah many, 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 many times. So it's there. In fact, it happens to be in the very first opening, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, and that's at the beginning of every surah except Surah At-Tawbah, and it makes up for it in another surah where it is a letter written by Suleiman to Bilqis, and he said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and I think everybody knows that here. But for sure, the word Allah, Alif, Lam, Lam, Ha, is represented again and again and again and again throughout the Quran and the Hadith, etc. So we know we use it. But what about the Jews and Christians? One came to me and he said, how come you say Allah? Why don't you say God like normal people? So what? Yeah, everybody else says God. I'm talking about a guy in Texas. You can figure, you know. You remember Bush. Yep. Anyhow, I asked them, do you think all the Christians say God? Yeah, sure they do. All the Christians say God, yeah. In Spanish? Or they don't count. Well, actually, in Spanish, you have more people who use this word Dios than you have people that speak English. What? Yes. Because in Latin, and that's where their Bible is coming from, and Spanish, and Italian, Portuguese, Francais, all of these languages have a word for their deity, and it's not God. Well, the guy's sitting there going, really? Somebody needs to wake him up. Really? I said, do you think that the prophets said that word God? Sure they did. It's in the Bible. In the Bible. King James